Hey, this is Nick from Remedy667.com, the best place on the internet for horror themed typefaces and fonts. And today is Horror Font Friday. So that means we're making some alphabets. And this one comes from The Loves of Count Yorga Vampire, which is also what we've got going on today. I put this movie on the other day and I was watching the opening credits and I was noticing all these double letter words that had interesting pieces. Now, I think this probably comes from some sort of visual type. Like, this is a font. You can tell that R is also that R, but the duplicate RR next to each other gets kind of canceled out. Same with the L's. There's two different N's. So I was like, holy crap, this is cool. Plus, it's the beginning of the month. Let's start it out kind of easy. Yeah. Opening credits, they give you so many letters. So we're going to go ahead and build two fonts from this. But first, I'm going to dig through it and see what we have available. So we're going to make sure that we've got at least two of each letter. And this gets a little confusing before it gets cleaned, so I'm going to kind of clean it as I go and cull the non-used ones. These B's, I think, are the same. It's hard to tell, though. They might be slightly off. It looks like there might be a little dip in the top of the B. See how that one goes in and this one doesn't? But other than that, they're very similar. Do I got any B's over here? Sorry if I sniffle a lot. I'm consistently stuffed up with the weather, which is great. I don't know. All those look the same. Same with the C's. These C's are all looking pretty much the same. If these B's are in fact the same, I don't want the top one. It seems like a more not as good of a cut, So it looks like some of these don't have duplicates. There's only duplicates of certain letters, which makes sense. I was looking at some stuff the other day of like old Foundry specimens from like, I don't know, the 90s or something, and they had like a really interesting way to make ligatures, and I remember seeing something like that in the past and thinking about it. So essentially, instead of you have these over-under ligatures like this. Like, let's say you wanted to make an LT ligature. Or let's say an LA ligature for more betterness. A lot of times, people would make that side a little smaller and the L would be kind of flat like this. It would still round off. But, let me know if you've heard this one. So, whoops, it would be more like this. So that would be like your LA ligature, right? So in this font, because it was made in a time when they were possibly still using some sort of locking pieces, these two are separate characters. This is just a stylistic set alternate of the A, and then whenever this L is in, this A swaps in and fits in like that. So this sounds like it might be a pretty interesting way to make some ligatures. It also kind of feels like a kerning nightmare. But I digress. D, E. These E's all look the same too, right? E, E. They got a dip in the left. This one feels a little cleaner. Nope, that's the same. Is there an F anywhere? Is that the first one we're missing? I got an H. These H's feel a little different. Not this one. This one feels like the bottom one. Am I lying to myself? Yep, I am. I want this one. Those eyes are also the same. This J is so weird. And there's a K. We're probably going to have pretty much every letter from the alphabet. I like that L better. But I like that there are two L's. This M is pretty cool. The fact that there's two N's is neat. I feel like this was like, I don't know what you call these, like rounded, partially serif fonts, Coopers. I don't know. That seems like a jerky assumption, but these Cooper style fonts. This feels like it may have been taken from one, especially like if you look at this N, like maybe this was the original font's N, and then this is kind of the way that they modified it, this version, which would be interesting to kind of see how that was accomplished. Perhaps for another day. We've got a P, we've got a Q, which is crazy. We got two R's, and the one that dips appears to be our normal. We have an S, we have a T and a U. That P's the same, yep. Appears to also only be one Y. That D's the same, yep. R, got it. G's the same, Y, D, those R's, that's all, we got all that. All right, let's take a look at this. Slang, there's a W, which we didn't have. That S is wild, huh? Oh, there's another letter, F. And then anything from near the end of the alphabet. I do not see anything from the end of the alphabet, but I was able to get an F, which is essentially looks exactly like a modified E, which is fun because that's kind of how we make stuff as well. I see a double L there. We already have. Man, can't believe there wasn't a second O. Ooh, we get a V. And there was a second F there. Yep, this is good. All right, so we have very little to build here. I think we literally just have to make an X and a Z. And it looks like it came with a duplicate of an A, an L, and an N. So I would like to also make duplicates of everything. But definitely O, M, T, S, D. P. Yeah. Some of the commonly duplicated usual suspects. All right. Holy moly. All right. Let's get into this. We'll get them all set up on the baseline, and then we will start thinking about alternates. And you know what I might do? I don't think I'm going to do alternates here. I think I'm going to do alternates the way I normally do alternates, which is in Procreate, which you don't get to see. I guess I'm sorry. It's a cool part of the process, but I am not savvy enough with the recorder yet to know to be able to be switching back and forth. Plus, the other thing with that is when I do my Procreate illustration, I can't really like sit here and draw because it wrecks my wrist. I go in the living room and like lay down on the floor like an animal. And I draw that way because I don't know, something about the angle works better, doesn't hurt as much. You be the judge. Even though this is from a vampire movie, this feels very much like a ghost story style font. And after I make this, I'm going to throw this bad boy into a couple font identifier pieces of software because this feels like something that probably did exist. Maybe I'll even go through some of the old specimen books. See if we can find this anywhere. But I don't have like... I have a phototypositor book. I think they did stuff, but I don't have any like filmotype books or anything, so I don't know. This feels like that kind of style, but it would have been from the 70s because it's Count Yorga. These are all pretty much on the ball, which is really nice. I don't really feel like I'm making a font at all. But that's all about to change. Right now. That V feels thick, right? I guess not too bad. It does need to come down a little bit, though, just to get sized correctly. Interesting. Okay, so that's going to come like right up to there. All right, let's grab an N and a K. We're going to use the K method reversed of making an X in this situation, just because I feel like that's going to work the best for the way this font already is, the style that it is. It's less, even though this is very much a display font, it's much less a display font than something I normally would be playing around with. So we're going to go ahead and cut that right there, and we're going to cut our K right there. And duplicate that and flip it around. Perfect. No. We are also going to cut right there and cut that one right there. And we'll see what happens. Our large slice, I will call it, needs to be lined up, but the smaller slice does not. But this feels a little right heavy. So before we completely kill the guides, let's take a look at forming our X a little better. This, I feel like I want the bottom to be a little wider. Oh, is that too much? That feels too much. Maybe I should bring in the top a little bit. I think that actually feels pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead and smash that And I'm piss poor at drawing curved lines, so I'm gonna make it a little more straight so that I can draw on it better, and then we'll rotate it back into shape. I feel like that's a pretty okay X. It doesn't feel as deteriorated as some of the other letters. Whether that's good or bad, I'm not really sure. I would like to smooth this part out a little bit, and the reason I'm doing that is to give it a little bit more variation from the bottom. This is gonna work like that, and we're gonna round these corners off just because there's no hard corners anywhere else in this font. It doesn't really make sense to me. And redrew that top part. That feels a little bit better. I kind of like how that sinks in on the left. Let's do that. That feels more like an X that would fit with this font. Let's see if we can get away with something similar on the Z. Man, I should have picked a different piece of lettering. For some reason today, I'm like, oh, I want to draw a bunch of letters. It's Friday. What are you going to do, you know? Sometimes I'm drawing stuff on my lunch too, and I'm kind of over it by this point in the day. Like, oh, I don't want to draw more letters. Don't make me do it. But today, that was not the case. Today, the case on lunch break was doing freelance work, which there's nothing wrong with doing freelance work, but some days you just don't want to do it all lunch break after you did it first thing in the morning before work. Sometimes you just want to relax and draw some letters. Is that Z coming in too thin? I feel like I want to put this together and just destroy any no going back with the multiple shapes. I want that to be a little wider at the bottom. I said I want that to be a little wider at the bottom. And I want this one to clean up. I want this to go up a little bit there, and I want this to probably thin out a little bit there. And this one should come right like that. Ooh, that's weird, this little rounded bit. Does that feel good? Does it feel like it should be rotated? Now, when it's rotated, I'm seeing some other things here. Let's turn off these guides. See how when we look at this upside down, it feels a little like it's kind of leaning one way, or the base might be a little too tall. But this way, you don't really notice that as much. Let's bring that side out just a little bit more, and then we will bring this in just that tiniest bit. That kind of feels good to me. I want this still to come out a little. I just want it to be more even and not kind of jutting in like it is on the left side. Probably should have used that end, but you know what? You live and learn, and then you get loves, and that's your problem. There we go. That needed to be way thicker once I looked at that second end. It still probably needs to be even thicker than that, but done with you. Z. All right, let's draw some letters. Think about that. I'm going to bring our guide back in, and I'm going to set this, and we're going to go ahead and open font self to build our initial alphabet. Select that and batch it. We'll do smart spacing, because why not? I think I've talked about smart spacing a bit in the past. I used to be really against it, but now I'm kind of whatever. Let's go ahead and save this as DS Yorga, because then I'll kind of know what it's from. All right, and KABC. We will get our DS Yorga out. And size it up. See where we should be. Somewhere around there. Maybe there. That seems... Wow, did you see that? First try. As 136.45 is what we ended up pretending that that was. I'm going to pull this down so I can... Sorry, I'm working in another window. You can't see what I'm doing. I'm pulling up my list of letters that I need to draw in my organized chaos file, because I need to organize my chaos. This used to be have a bunch of checklists and stuff so that I could actually organize my chaos, but I haven't filled it out in a while, and I don't necessarily plan to. So it's just chaotic chaos at this point. I'm going to shrink this in. I also move things around between computers because I'm a total glutton for punishment, apparently. Yeah. Excuse me, holy moly. So the reason I'm making these small edits to this O is just to give it a little bit more variation from the zero. Sorry. I'm forgetting words. I'm losing my mind. And this one needs to also reflect. And because we're back here by the 9, let's get started with the 9. That's pretty good. These are going to come in quite a bit because I know we're making components, but I want this to just be slightly different from the C. Just by adding a little bit of variation. Same with this guy over here. that is going to come way. That looks pretty bad. Let's go ahead and lock it in. This feels like it wants to be wider on the sides. I also want it to look kind of awkward. That actually feels like a pretty good 8. For the 7, I was thinking about this when I kept drawing the 8. I actually want the 7 to be, when I was drawing the Z, I wanted the 7 to be that version of it, like from the bottom instead of from the top, because I really liked when I flipped it upside down. I was like, oh, that's the 7 right there. It's already ready. See, that turns out pretty good. 6s are pretty legit. We're going to smooth that side off and shorten it there. And then this, that's pretty funky. For a 5, this is going to be way more similar sized with that. And it's going to need to be super high-waisted if it wants to come up to where this E is. But I think I want that E to come down a little bit. Is that true? No. Damn it. It is true. I do want it to come down a little bit, but I don't want it to come down because the H is high-waisted, the B is high-waisted, everything's high-waisted. So if I drop the 5, it's going to look weird. I was thinking about this earlier. I was at the grocery store and I was looking, they had some ad on the door, like get 5% off your groceries or something. And I was looking at the 5 and I was like, this is the same. It was obviously like some new, crisp, beautiful piece of lettering that somebody had drawn. But it was kind of high-waisted, but it looked weird, and it made me think. I was like, this looks like the same 5 from a license plate. And then I was like, man, I should be, what am I doing? I should be drawing fonts inspired by what's on license plates, because apparently that's how you get in grocery stores. That is a pretty good looking 5, if I don't say so myself. It's high-waisted even. For the 4, that's just gonna go just like that. The 3, you know how we like it with the 3. That's right. We chop them all to hell, because look at this, though. the 3 in the center of it has to have that same gibberish that's in the E. This bottom half can come down a bit and should come down a bit. This needs to come up. I didn't think about that much when I did the top part first. I need to group that, and this one's actually going to tilt a little that way because the B is so strange. Oh, I thought that 2 was done. I thought the deal was sealed with the 2. It's going to get a little thinner, and we're going to lose that bit there. And that's just going to come out a little bit. And that's just to help it feel a little more like a 2 and less like it's falling off. Just kind of balance out the right and left on the 2. And also give it a little bit of variance from the S or the C or whatever the heck that came from. Pretty sure it was the S. So these are pretty good. The 9 feels a little weird to me. I feel like actually just moving these over a little bit might help the 9. But then this can't be all choppy and weird. It can do that. That feels a little better to me. You can write whatever you want in the comments. But if you go look in the video description, you'll see that this has already been released. So there. I'm going to duplicate that 5 because it's such a beautiful thing. And we are going to move on to the next portion of our show, which is fancy characters. Now, y'all remember how we make these. So I think what I want to talk about when we look at these characters is kind of why I decided to do these where they go. Because if you notice, the 5 should normally go with the rest of the diacritics, since it's the cedilla, and these you would think should go with the rest of the brackets, but they don't, and that is because of the whole circle letter concept that I came up with at some point, that circle letters go at the beginning, because I determined that these characters were just the way they were created at the time. It made sense that they were created at this point, because the way it used to work in the long history, yeah, right, you know, typography's been around forever. I've been making fonts in this style for like, I don't know, 8 years maybe at this point. So in the long 8-year history of Remedy 667, and this style's even, or this process, I've only been working on in the last couple of years. But what I used to was use these two, which become the equals, and then those would attach to the top and bottom of this, kind of form this weird curvatured circle. It was at the time it was great. And looking at some of those fonts, it's like, this is great. But like, I think about it now and I'm like, what? Like, why? Why was I doing this like that? It's also part of why I'm like going in and redoing some of my older fonts, because I have all these new processes for how things get done. And it's like, if I'm looking at something old and I'm like, why did I do it like that? It's actually pretty easy for me to go back into it now. Way easier than it would have been, you know, a year ago. I'm thinking like, yeah, like 8 or 9 years. Yeah, of course it was, because I wasn't doing anything with this back then. But that's gonna get way more harder on the edge, and this is going to come up just a little bit, and this is going to tuck in like that. I want this to have a serif on it for some reason, like the E. It's a bad idea. The B, I think, was one of the last things that I added. The S set was one of the last things that I added to this, and I don't actually remember why I added it to here instead of in the Diacritics. I think I feel like the amount of kind of drawing that I was doing with the other characters, it just fit in more here. And it was kind of frustrating to do it near the end of the Diacritics, where the rest of them are more, you're just moving things together. It moves really fast. But this is like, oh, so like any parts of the process where I was drawing letters in a specific order, if I had to kind of stop just quick moving to actually draw something out, it was kind of a pain in the butt and slowed the process down. So here, because we're drawing this and drawing this and drawing this, and it's kind of from scratch, not really, but you know what I mean. It's kind of its own thing. So now, funny enough, I don't even use that brackets anymore to make my circle characters, what I used to call them at the early days. Now what I do is I just take the O and I just modify it a little bit. And I bet you could probably also do this in glyphs the same way or a similar way. I'm just really accustomed to the pencil tool in Illustrator. It does not hurt my wrist to use the mouse like this, at least doing one of these in a day, you know. You're going to group that C and that R, move them into place. So the circle characters go in a specific order. And the reason the A comes in with the other copyright registered is because it's also essentially a circle character. I don't know when I decided that chopping the S up and turning it into an italic A was a good idea. I, over time, have had favorites and not so favorites of letters that I like to draw. And you always hear people complaining about the S. Draw the S. And I feel like that is, for a long time, I did not like to draw the S. And then I kind of got used to it, and now I can kind of make them pretty quick. Obviously, we're talking about display fonts. I'm not going to claim like I can go and draw some perfect Helvetica Bedoni S or anything nonsense like that. But characters like the @ symbol are a huge pain in the butt for some reason. They just never really look right to me. I feel like the @ symbol is kind of a complicated one to get right. And the ampersand also is kind of tricky. Those weird bumps. Excuse me. I sound like a horse. I'm just going to smooth those out. I feel like this can come in a little more like that. And that looks more like an @ symbol, sort of. Great. So that's the circle characters. That's how those kind of came to be. From there, we go into what I often refer to as my favorite part, which is math. And it's not because I'm some sort of insane maniac who loves doing math. It's because the math symbols are very much just simple parts of the equation. They are very easy to make. They look pretty good. You keep them kind of clean compared to your other stuff. This underscores doesn't need any editing. Like, you know, there's all my n dash, m dash, regular dash, underscore. My equals sign is going to come together pretty quick, and it's going to go smaller than the dash. I'm actually also going to get these letters a little bit more close in width. Which will come in handy as I'm building out, whoops, the plus symbol, which comes after equals the plus minus symbol. I don't I've always called this symbol the plus minus. I assume that's what it's called. Multiply, and then our don't make me remember this word. These things that I can't remember what they're called. My mind keeps saying Ogonek, and they are not that. It's like Gilmet and Gilsing. So this would be the Gilsing because it's singular. And the Gilmet or Gilmot. And I don't even know if that's actually what it's called. That's just kind of what the character in glyphs is called. So there you go. Another fine day. I'm going to move those over because those are probably going to come in handy again pretty soon. We are next going to make... This is not the one that I often skip, which is punctuation, and I don't skip it on purpose. I skip it because I am forgetful. So with this, I want that to be thinned out. I want to remove this dent and fix that one, but I also want it to be kind of rounded on that side. And I want this to be 20 degrees, and I want this one to reflect and be negative 20 degrees. For my bar, the reason I rounded that is because when I did it at 20 degrees, that serif was just going to get really frustrating. And I'm actually taking the serifs away for the bar. I used to make a broken bar right after the bar, but now I don't make a broken bar at all, because I'm terrible and I'm mean. If you have any other ideas about the broken bar, maybe I should do it. I don't know. Put it in the comments. One day I'll figure out YouTube and we'll learn how to reply to comments or see them if they ever come through. I'll get up the courage. Bam. All right, so there's that. I think for this one, I am going to use the regular established equal sign. And I'm also going to use that for, look at me, getting out of order, being messy. I'm going to grab these because they are going to be perfect players for my, let's ungroup that and turn on our guides because I just want to tuck this in proper for my dagger. Double dragon, double daggering. And next, for my next trick is number sign. Whoops. Group that. I don't, whoops. I almost deleted that bar. Number sign. I think I used to make this different. I used to make it with the bar and kind of push it back down and condense it in a weird way. But now I make it with those. I kind of, this grouping I kind of came up with because they were similar enough anyway. See, that was good, but bad order. That one should be on the left because it definitely needs to, I read a thing the other day and it was talking about an extended serif on the bottom right because it helps lead the eye into the next. It's like, you know, you've got a serif on the top left and a serif on the bottom right in a Latin font that you would be reading from left to right. So it guides you through the letter the same way it guides you through the page. I don't know. Maybe that's a philosophy thing. Maybe I saw it in a dream. I don't know. Maybe I'm lying for all I know. Gonna get a little thinner. This is gonna get chunky and I want it to go up. I think I did this a couple weeks ago too, where I was like, I really want my dollar sign to be up and I want it thinner. And I want this side to be a little more yes. A little more yes. I like that tall dollar sign. I think that looks, there's like an element of comic in that. Comedy, graffiti, cartoon culture kind of coming through in that, the tall S. Also, you notice like a lot of S's, a lot of dollar signs. If you do a lot of like ad work with numbers, dollar signs, or they like extend like above and below your baseline, which is kind of a pain in the butt when you're trying to, you know, get copy that's stacked nice in a little cube for some ad where you're saying like, this is only 29% off $50 and the dollar signs sticking up higher than everything else. I don't know. It drives me nuts. I like, and then, or when you superscript them and then you got to track them down a little bit. That's also fucking annoying. Stop doing that when you're laying out your type. If you're a type designer, get your dollar signs in order because they're annoying to deal with. Legit. This is going to be our O slash, and we're also going to use it for our percentage and our fraction. Go ahead and group that. I'm moving slow today, huh? Like a turtle. Gonna turn into a golly darn pumpkin, I tell ya. Talking like Ned Flanders over here. All right, these are gonna need cleaned up. There's just too much of this dent happening. Okay, much better. I'm glad we got through that together. So I used to, when I was doing the bar, I used to make the period then. But now I don't. But I'm going to take the bar and make the period. And the reason I used to make the period then is because this part, oh, look at that. It's a beautiful thing. Because this part was kind of annoying to me for a long time. Just having to come up with a period in the middle of all this. And it comes from the I, but it's different than the tittle, if, you know, or the dotted I, the dot of the I, whatever terminology you use. It's different than that, so it's not like you're just taking the dot of the I and moving it over. But something about this just annoys me. I don't know why. See me jump those over a little bit there. That's got to move, and actually that can reflect. All of it can reflect. Uh-oh, it's starting to slow down. You saw it too, didn't you? Illustrator, it's getting sleepy. Wants me to close down some of the 10 Illustrator documents I had open before I started working on this. Group that. That is my period centered. We need a bullet. I'm going to round that just a little bit because I don't like that. And I'm going to squeeze it a little bit because I want it to be more circular, which seems weird. I don't think that'll actually necessarily fit with the font any better. Maybe even worse. But it doesn't matter because that's what we're doing. I'm taking these serifs with me. I'm leaving and I'm taking these serifs with me. There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing can be said or done. I need that to come down a little bit. That's kind of cool. It's got a weird shakiness element to it. Let's get these two eyes out of there. Scram, two eyes. This is another place where the center of that S being so large is going to be a little troublesome again. I want this to round in. I was looking at there we go. That'll actually be kind of interesting. It's almost Batman-like. I was looking at the way that I draw the question mark the other day, and I was like, you know, I'd say all this like screw what everybody says about working non-destructively. You got to tear stuff apart. You got to pretend like you're a potter. And then I'm looking at like my question marks, and I'm like, I do a really bad job at smoothing out where the I and the S meet because I never deconstruct it or tear it apart. So today, that's what do we do? Come on. And I also don't necessarily change the S as much as I just did there. That first one is nuts. The ellipsis is a character that I frequently left off of fonts for a long time. I don't know why. I'm a bad friend. Let's move on to currency. After this currency, I'm going to take a break because, not because I'm tired, but because I got to build my reference. I need to rebuild my reference library that I'm making these from, because I'm getting a lot of missing character errors, which is fine and is expected and comes with the territory. But I don't need to. I can easily just do another export and get them cleaned up. And I think that's a much better way to work. I think it's cleaner. This is another one that will benefit from getting joined. Group. That's going to thin up a little bit and go right in the center. Also come a little closer and thicken back up. Group. So it's not exactly a whatever that is, but it's close. It's not exactly an equal sign. They're all modified. I'm going to take a quick break. You're going to turn into a pumpkin. All right, welcome back. That was quick, huh? You missed like a whole 2 minutes of the movie. What are you doing? Sure, we'll wind it. Watch again. Look at these. See that up there? It's Command-Shift-I. If that ever happens to you, Command-Shift-I. We'll make that go away. Because we all know that sometimes that can just mess you all up when the perspective tool comes out. I have to release the compound path now because these have been made into letters and are no longer just shapes of the equals symbol. Group. And you know what? Let's go ahead and destructed these. This is another one. It's kind of easy to make. but I feel like parts of it get kind of lost. Like that should be smoothed out there. This doesn't need to come out as much, but it can just roll down, you know. That can smooth off of that. That made some pretty good brackets. What are we at, an hour yet? Yeah. All right. So let's wrap this up. All we have left is our foreign characters, smalls, and diacritics. And this is all pretty easy stuff from here on out and moves pretty quick. So don't blink, take notes, and here we go. Outline G, our OE, we're going to move it in there. See how it overextends into the E? We want to cut that out. We want to destructive those, and we're just going to smooth those sides. This AE, I'm not really sure what this character is called. I think people used to call it the Tool Enema character for a long time. It's probably something similar to that, actually. No. So that's how you do that. This is the Eth, which is great. I think it's a Nordic character, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Group. This one is called a Thorn. I believe it's another Nordic character. Don't quote me on that either. Don't quote me on anything. These are for entertainment purposes only. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is not type design advice. Hell, this isn't even design advice. You know what? For some reason, none of those are hanging over. That seems weird to me, but I'm just going to mush it together and cut that in and over. And this is going to come down, and that is our section symbol. I always forget what the Y is when I get here, because I used to make this less than greater than from the V, which ever since I started making it from the Y, now I'm always like, why the hell did I ever make this from the V? That was so stupid. It seemed so obvious at the time, right? Like you look at a V and you're like, it's pretty, that's it. That's the character. It's a sideways V. But no. It's the top of a Y. Which ironically is sometimes made from the sideways V, but this one's already closer to the size. This is not type design advice. Gonna go ahead and rotate that one. And this, the grand finale. Whenever you see me look to the right, it's because my video of what's being recorded is over there. Blah, blah, blah. There's like 3 monitors going on in front of my face. If you wonder why I'm babbling half the time. So this one over here has the recording that's happening. Down here is nothing. It's just my laptop, but it has the camera. But the screen covers up some of the screens that I'm looking at. So whenever the drop down box comes and it's on the bottom right, it's being covered up by like I don't know. Imagine like that area is being covered up by the laptop, something around there. So anytime something gets over there, I can't see it. All right, this is all gross. So what we're gonna do is put it all together. we are going to do that. This is going to get rounded a little bit, and it's going to get shorter because I need this gap to just be a little bit bigger, which will help it read better at smaller sizes. Please don't set display typefaces at smaller sizes, unless they're like obviously some Cooper looking foolishness. Or, you know, if they're like made for that, I guess. No. That needs to smooth. This needs to come out here. Uh-oh. You heard that violin too. So that is my et style ampersand, which, you know, I gotta admit, I was a late adopter, but I like it. I think it's a bit of a time saver. When you draw as many ampersands as I do, the 3T ampersand is the way to go. Did I already rotate that? I did. Size it down. All right, smalls. Where anybody? OG is how we break them apart. We're just going to group that. This, I don't know if I mentioned this in last week, but I rotated both of these because the wider side is on the left, and when I spin them around, I want the wider side to stay on that side. However, on the A, it's on the right. So maybe it has to do with that line. Don't listen to me. This is not type design advice. This is type design. I am designing type. But this is not sound advice. You gotta forge your own way. I'm pretty excited because after I finish this, I'm gonna go make some food. All right. Keeping it with the O height. And we'll just go ahead and delete that. All right, we are in the final stretch. Diacritics, my friends. No. Why did it do that? Because I didn't copy the diacritics. It tried to make me do that again. We're just going to grab that over. Command-Shift-G. We are going to highlight that. See, I grabbed that with the A. I highlighted it instead of having to break the link into symbols or whatever I said that was called before. Perhaps that's a trick or a hack or whatever people call them these days. I started reading Typetricks again. I think I mentioned that I was in jury duty a couple weeks ago. This was years ago that I was in jury duty. But I think I was reading that book when I was in jury duty. I had that book and Rick Rubin's book, which I never finished. If you finished it, let me know in the comments. I don't think I know anybody who's finished it. I don't know why. I'm sure people have. It was like one of those books that it seemed like everybody bought. but of the small group of people that I talked to about it, none of them had finished it either. So that's interesting. We're going to cut that at the top. I'm going to itch my nose. I'm going to fill the bottom end. Actually, I want this to be a little thicker. And part of that is because I want to make... A couple weeks ago, I did a font... What was it called? It was called Turntable. But I ultimately named it Terror Eyes. Like... You know, like you're in a Fulci movie. But, yeah, I don't remember what I was saying about that because we're almost done. Oh, but so in Terror Eyes, what I did was made a version that you could put on the bottom that kind of was like the Sundowner. I might have called it Sundowner. I did that when I did Screecher. I have a couple other fonts that do that, but it's essentially, it's like kind of a graffiti effect where there's a little bit of an inner fill that comes away from the line, but only does the bottom and kind of pieces. It's like highlights. I called it highlight in that font. But, I think I might do something similar with this because I like the way that turns out. But anyway, that's the end. That's our font. That's all the pieces. We're at like an hour and 12 minutes. We went A through Z. We went 0 through 9. We did all the fancy letters. We did the currency. We jumped back in and did multilingual, smalls, and diacritics. My voice is getting scratchy. I need to get some food. I've been hanging out for over an hour. Yeah. So check that out below. That's going to be coming out today. And I will see you next week for another Horror Font Friday where we're going to be making, I don't know, whatever I decide to make next week. If you have any suggestions, let me know. I usually kind of just pick something that Thursday or sometimes even like 20 minutes before I start making this video. But yeah, I will see you then. Don't turn into a pumpkin. You're awesome.